like to welcome each and every individual to podcast for Voices of Integrity for Marriage. And today we're going to do a follow-up session on conflict, resolving conflict. Longest time to resolve conflict. Are you talking about in our relationship, or are you talking about in our marriage? If it's our marriage, it's 39 years. You might be thinking, I thought you said you were married. Yeah. Seems like some of the conflict maybe. So when individuals watched, part one, they're like kind of disappointed because I don't know if we really heard how do you resolve it. And Rosanna and I talked some. And so what we did is she was intentional about maybe creating some conflict for this one, and then we could actually do real life. So in doing the podcast, I went ahead and were you laughing?
I was.
Okay.
I was intentionally creating conflict. Oh, this is interesting.
When you intentionally create conflict, do you always laugh?
Honey,
she confuses me.
Laughter is the best medicine for everything. So that's what I think.
Okay, I guess. Anyways, so we'll go ahead and take this as an example. So when I said something to her before the podcast and said, "Hey, we'll need to let Elaine and Elaine and Gendran and Melissa know because sometimes they participate in the live," and she answered me. She was a little poosty, had sassy, and put off, and so she seemed frustrated. She seemed upset that she needed to do that. Now, was she really put off? Okay. Well, let's ask her. So resolving conflict, like I think she was upset or put off or frustrated, something. It's like, so I thought she was. So I just asked her, Rosanna, were you frustrated or put off by that? And her computer is not working. I don't know why this is. Probably to create more conflict. And so it's like, it's just strange. Like, it's just strange how a lot of this stuff, like when it's really important to have it work, it doesn't work for her. I don't know why it works for me. Seems like stuff always works for me, but it doesn't seem to work for her. Are you back with us or not so much?
I am, but I'm not on the computer. I had to be on my phone.
Okay, so this is one other thing that creates conflict, and I don't know how many years it's been. How many years do you remember it back where Rosanna explaining herself all the time, that I don't understand that. It kind of irritates me. So that hasn't been happening since the day we were married or before. How long do you remember that really irritating me?
Forever.
Okay, so that's more than 40 years. So this is a great question, right? This is a great question. Now, if you all are thinking Mark's really mean and Rosanna is not, this is not how it works. Now, in the public, she's very nice and she's fun and cute and funny, and she's like, oh yeah, and everybody thinks, oh, she's this amazing wife. And I'm not saying she's not, she really is, but she's on her best behavior with everybody except for me. Like me. So one of the ways that I resolve conflict is I do podcasts, seriously, or I do public speaking and I bring up stuff. I mean, she literally joined Saturday's podcast that we've been running for, I don't know, years, decades, to find out what I'm thinking, because if I'm in public and I'm presenting something, then it's safe. But if I'm privately with her, not so much. So were you put off by having to notify Ginger Ann and Elaine and Melissa?
Just trying to get, I guess it would say, yes, I was feeling rushed. Because I really had to set up my computer again.
Let me ask you a question if I could. Were you feeling rushed?
Yes.
Okay. So this is something else that irritates me a lot, is when I ask people questions and they don't answer my questions. They give me an answer to a question that I didn't ask. And so the 9Ds would be a great read why I don't succeed or why I'm not successful or something in the 9Ds. That creates a lot of conflict. And so as an amiable, you'd think she doesn't like conflict. She tries to avoid conflict, but she's very, very well aware that when she explains things to me, that irritates me. When I get irritated, that then frustrates her. And so we end up in this spiral down. So again, do a podcast with your spouse, resolve the conflict on the podcast, and just be honest. Let the whole world see what the issues are. You can do that with Voices of Integrity. You go to a seminar, workshop, marriage, enhancement weekends, all these things, and everybody's up on stages and they're all doing nice things. They're not having, maybe it's not real. It's a show, like you're paying something or you're going to something and you're supposed to. Voices of Integrity, you don't have to fake things. You don't have to, put a good front on. And so do a podcast, do it publicly. I mean, for those Christians out there, we teach our kids to lie. We do. We just do. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that's another podcast. But we're not honest. We're not honest with our spouse. And we're not honest with the people around us. You think about the people you go to church with. Do they know what's really going on in your marriage? I mean, you have an advantage if you're a driver personality like me, because with social autism, where I don't really care what people think of me or my marriage. I really don't. Rosanna does. She cares a lot. She wants people to think of her in a very specific way. People can think of me any way they want to think of me. And so for years, I've tried to get help from the church and from family and friends, and I can't get help in the marriage. It's like, I don't know. It's strange. Anyways, so, okay, going back to, so you felt rushed.
Yes.
And you don't like feeling rushed?
No.
Do you feel that you are taking it out on me?
Maybe.
Is that a good thing to take it out on your husband if you feel like you have feelings of being rushed, and so you're taking that out on your husband? Is that what you would advise wives to do?
No.
Why do you do it?
Because I didn't know that I was taking it out on you. I thought I answered your question. I didn't know if you heard the edge in my
fault.
voice.
Okay, this is not
Rosanna's I didn't know fault. You heard the edge in my voice, so I'm sorry.
This is not her fault either. She's buying into the press that women are very sensitive and men are not. Like, that's what we're taught. Everywhere we're taught, women are sensitive, men are not. So she thinks that's actually true. She thinks that when she's on edge with me, I don't know it, even though she's been married me for 39 years. And if you ask her, who's more sensitive, your husband or you, she would probably say, my husband's far, far more sensitive than I am. Well, she might say that. Hey, he's probably more sensitive. So she knows it, so she knows I'm more sensitive. She knows that I'm going to probably pick it up. So is it that she just doesn't care? So just ask her. Just husbands, ask your wife. So is it that you just don't care then? I mean, do you think I'm more sensitive than you are?
Yes.
And so you didn't think I would pick up that irritation in your voice, and you're irritated with me about something that, about informing other people about it?
I guess not.
And again, this is not her fault. Let me explain why. Okay. So the reason it's not her fault is I, as a husband for 38 years, I didn't know that my feelings were important. Honestly, I didn't. I mean, I'm not joking. You can tell on my face and my voice. I didn't know. So it wasn't until my son Ben and my brother Ken told me, I don't know, this year. So let it be for the record, 2023 is when I, as a husband, realized that my feelings were important. Now, this is getting to be very difficult. Like, so for 58 years of my life, I realized my feelings are not important. They're just not. Doesn't matter what I feel. Even now. And even now, when I say something about my feelings, and I'm not joking, I'm not laughing, it's just, my feelings are very important. All the women around me will start laughing. And it's like, so is that how you want to be treated? You want somebody to laugh at you when you're sharing your feelings? So again, Rosanna didn't know this until just this year. So she's getting used to my feelings. So my feelings are, I'm frustrated and hurt and upset with you. It's like, really, I've got to do everything. But again, if you have two people in the marriage where their feelings are really, really important, that seems to be a recipe for disaster to me. Or maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe if both people, because it seems like feelings are all about me. And so she was out, she's trying to be like not explain herself so much. Like she was out shopping because we have some individuals putting a roof on our deck, which is going to be really, really cool and cute and so much fun and everything. So she's out shopping for those. So I asked her, do you want to do the podcast? Because I won't go into all the details of what it's the holiday season and we got a lot of stuff going on. So should we do the podcast? So she's got a lot going on. And so I don't like when she goes ahead and explains herself to me unless I ask her, what do you mean by that? Or give me more details. But she's continually explaining herself, which irritates the living daylights out of me. So often with our spouse, we don't actually share our feelings. I thought about that years ago. I'm like, why don't you share what you want? Oh, this is great advice for any couples that are interested in great TJJS. That's the code word for Tarzan Jane Jungle Sex. So really crazy stuff. like if your physical intimacy is great, okay, it brings tremendous healing to arguments and conflict. But obviously, it can be very hard to have TJJS if you're not in flow. If you're not. So I mean, one kind of, feeds the other. And so, so after 39 years of marriage, we're working on flow. Like, how do we get in flow? And how do we be in flow? So she's irritated and she's not thinking, well, that's not being very nice to my husband. I mean, like he doesn't really care if we do it or don't, but he does like consistency. And it is important for people's marriages. I mean, hopefully what we're doing here is being to other people and they're seeing this is real. This is not contrived. They get in arguments right on the podcast, right on the live podcast. And sometimes he's not nice to her and everybody sees it. But do they see when she's not so nice to him? Probably not. And is he okay with it? Yeah, I think so. I mean, I want her to look good. I don't want to look good. I want her to look good. But am I actually hurting her? It might be. Like, these are questions that not a lot of people seem to be asking. And so I think being honest, but it's like you got to, when do you bring up a subject and when do you just let it down? It seems like to me that normally women, and if you're offended by stereotypes, well, then stop being stereotypical. Stop being like, men are stereotyped all the time, and it's okay. Like men are interested in one thing and one thing alone. That's a stereotype. So if you're a blonde and if you're a blonde woman and you don't like dumb blonde jokes, well, then I hope you don't go ahead and be stereotypical of men. So, Rosanna, other thoughts or on conflict, resolving conflict?
Well, this was definitely an interesting podcast. That's what I
Why
have
is
to say
that?
to that. Why? Uh, because I guess it's cool that you call me out. Then it's out front and people know, and yeah, hey, get a little edgy with your husband. Maybe not so good for the other parts of your life.
Especially when
Um,
you're getting on a podcast, because he'll call you out on the podcast for 8 billion people so you got to be good at least a little bit before the podcast. Nice to him.
yeah, I know. I'm
Right?
sorry.
No, sorry, go ahead. Women out there or amiables out there like he's picking on his wife again. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, there's was I thinking smart when I said, "Yeah, let's go ahead and do it." Was I ready? No. Did I
You're
feel
born ready, girl.
pressured? Did
Like
I
resolving conflict, like we deal with this. We go on our walks every morning. We go on dates every Friday. You said this week, you said on our date on Thursday or Wednesday, or we did like Wednesday, I guess this week, right? Like you said, like all your lady friends are jealous of you. That's her phone. Like there's a
That was to
caller.
remind me about this podcast.
Thank you for
So there.
explaining that because that makes me feel a lot closer to you.
It's to
So
say
guys,
that I
if
think it's
your wife
important.
explains a lot to you, it took me a long time to understand why is she explaining? Why is she going into so many details? Then I realized the more words that she uses, the more closer she feels to you. And I'm not saying it's all
Mhm.
about her feelings and your feelings don't matter. I'm just saying that the more words she uses, so if she uses 1,000 words on you, she feels twice as close to you as if she uses 500 words or 10
Well,
times
I would just
closer.
like you to know that the rooster
Oh, real
reminds
quick,
me of
it's
how
not
important
wrong
this
for her to
is.
interrupt me. It's wrong for me to interrupt her, but it's not wrong for her to interrupt me because I'm a man, she's a woman. So it's rude and mean and nasty if I do it to her, but if she does it to me, it's okay. Just so you guys know, these are some of the rules. Go ahead.
I think somebody's going to get a kick out of this podcast. They're going to say, "Who are these people?"
Right? How did they last 39 years? They're like, I don't want to listen to these podcasts. I mean, these guys have a terrible marriage. And it's like, well, like
Or it's
John
real.
Henderson, my good friend, again, she's interrupting me. But you're talking all the time, Mark. Like, well, maybe I have something good to say. Like John Henderson said, you can learn more from a bad leader than you can a good leader. Well, maybe you can learn more from a bad marriage than you can a good marriage. Like when I saw my parents' marriage, I said it's not a marriage I would want to have, but it worked for them, I guess, for 55 years. And Rosanna's parents, their marriage, it's not a marriage I would want for sure. But if it's working for them, then I realized, so Mark, why don't you just study everybody marriages and why don't you go ahead and decide what kind of marriage you want and then have that kind of marriage? Like, don't belittle other people's marriage. Say, what kind of a marriage do I want? And then create that kind of a marriage. So hopefully this has been helpful to all of you. We might have a part 3. Like, we might, because there's a lot of things I'm telling you. I don't know if I've become more sensitive because my feelings are now important. Like, probably that's the case. So, but
Probably.
right. But there's a lot of things that irritate me about her. Like, oh my gracious. And so you guys can submit, guys, you can go ahead and submit things, you know, you can submit things on here and and what irritates you about your wife. And then if you're a woman and you're kind of connecting with me and saying, that's weird because I'm actually connecting and my wife is more like, or my husband, he's more like Rosanna. And so my husband uses way too many words. Like he explains himself all the time and irritates the living daylights out of me. If you're a driver, and you're a woman, my heart goes out to you even harder, I think, to be a woman who's a driver personality. And so if you have any questions on anything, did you have any final closing comments, Rosanna?
Oh, I didn't want to interrupt you. I mean, no, I'm good.
Thank you for using those extra words. I feel a lot closer to you now. So guys,
So
or
should we
women,
end this podcast with a kiss or something so that people think that we're maybe get along otherwise, or should they be worried?
I mean, do you just want a kiss or do you want some, do you want some of the TJJS stuff?
That we can do later, not on this call.
If you're listening to the rebroadcast of this, I mean, share with other people, right? I mean, if nothing else, it's good comedy. And then you can, it's just awesome. So if you have any questions on anything we covered today, feel free to connect with, the individual who invited you to participate, or you can call toll free 888-230-2300 outside the US 630-393-9909. And always remember, we can accomplish so much more together than we ever could on our own. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.